Good evening, friends. Today we have Abhijit Iyer Mitra, Senior Fellow at Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies. Welcome to our channel, Abhijit, as always.
Thanks always, Meena. Always
Yeah,
nice being here.
yeah. And people get
I
very
wish it were
excited
under better circumstances, but it is what it is.
the viewers, when they know that you're coming. Thank you. Okay. Now going back to our subject for today, Abhijit, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he held 23 rallies in 14 days in Bengal. The Union Home Minister Amit Shah, 79 rallies, roadshows, and town halls in 20 days. The ruling party in the centre deployed over 52 union ministers, MPs, chief ministers, and cabinet ministers of BJP ruled states to campaign in Bengal. Around 15 to 17 senior BJP and RSS leaders were stationed in Bengal for more than 3 months. Today, with Mamta coming to power, BJP leaders seem to have abandoned their supporters. There has been no response as TMC workers went on a rampage attacking people, torching homes, destroying homes. And ironically, CM Mamta Banerjee urges all political parties to ensure peace prevails soon after her taking oath. So, what's happening? If you say, for example, Abhijit, that BJP does not care, what do you say about TMC workers who were given a free hand to do as they chose? Is this what people expected from either party who would come to power?
Look, the TMC is behaving like they always have. I didn't expect anything different from the TMC. But then I shouldn't have expected anything better from the BJP as well, because they're the biggest Bhagoda backstabbers you can ever find. They've never looked after their own. They always abandon their own. It's only the inferiority complex driven image of whoever's in charge that matters to them. Best of luck to them if that's how they think they're going to build a party. And the sad thing is, we were always told the BJP wasn't about an individual, it was about an ideology. It turns out ideology is dispensable, the individual is not. So it's just turning into a mirror image of the Congress. More competent at electioneering, but really a mirror image of the Congress. And also not corrupt. I mean, the one thing you can never accuse this current BJP government of is corruption.
Yeah. So what do you think happened?
Look, this had been, I've been saying it for a while now, for almost 2.5 months now, that the TMC was going to win. I never expected the scale of victory. I expected it to be around, 150, 155, maximum 160 kind of thing. But I wasn't expecting this scale. What happened was several things. The three interlocutors you've appointed for Bengal aren't Bengalis, number one. Number two, it seemed they were more interested in telling people what to do rather than listening to people on what to do. You had a whole bunch of very powerful TMC leaders who had joined you, who knew what was happening on the ground. You didn't want to listen to them. You started parachuting in candidates who had zero ground knowledge, no recognition on the ground. Nobody knew them literally. And you expected people to form a bond with them based on what? The Modi magic. Now, see, people are smart. I think in election after election after election after election, we've seen that people can vote one party into power in the center and another party into power in the state. Right? Why? Because it's just one of those things that they do that, they're able to differentiate between what they want here and what they want there. Still, you insist on it's going to be Modi versus Mamta. It worked in the Lok Sabha campaign. I bet you it's going to work in 2024 as well. If Mamta thinks she's going to win all the seats like this in 2024 in the Lok Sabha election, she's mistaken. But it seems the BJP forgot that. And the other thing has been, if you notice, the entire eastern seaboard, there is not a single state on the eastern seaboard, not Tamil Nadu, not Odisha, not Andhra, not Bengal, that they've been able to breach the fort, because it's very, very regional, it's very local. There is no connect to the center as such, so it's a completely different ball game. Then of course there was this whole thing where they went on believing their own nonsense, and went around saying, oh, we're going to win 200 seats, 200 seats plus, 160, 170 people aren't seeing the wave that we're seeing. And when you do that, you create polarization against you. So that saw a significant Muslim consolidation. And that is exactly what happened. Now, the problem is, after the violence that you've seen out there, and the BJP's the joke of their response, sending the vice president down there to shake the president down there to shake hands and holding some kind of a dharna, the subalterns that you were counting on to come out, the people that you were hoping were going to vote for you, you tell me, how will they ever trust you again to vote? You look at Mamta herself. After the Congress realized, Siddhartha Shankar Ray lost Bengal for the Congress irretrievably. After Siddhartha Shankar Ray became chief minister, Congress has never been able to come back in Bengal. He destroyed the party out there. Finally, in 1990 election, that it was handed over to, or 96, it was finally handed over to Mamta Banerjee, and she managed a very respectable show of 84 seats. Then in 2001, she had split and formed the All India Trinamool Congress, but she fought with the Congress. She got 60 seats and the Congress got another 26 seats, so the tally went up. After that, in the 2006 election, she fought with the NDA and it came down to 30 seats because the Muslim electorate punished her for it. And then finally, in 2011, she becomes chief minister. It took her 15 years. And you know what she did in those 15 years? She got beaten up by CPIM goons. She got molested by CPIM goons. There is nothing the CPIM goons didn't do to her party workers, hacked them, hanged them, burnt them alive, whatever. She was there on the ground. She was there on the ground looking after her own people. She wasn't like the Delhi appointed candidates who turned off their phones and ran away. She wasn't like that joke of a minister with Z category security who's more concerned about his car than he is about the life of his constituents and his party members. She wasn't like that. If anything happened to her party worker, the first person to be out there would be Mamta Banerjee.
Yeah.
Right? You need that kind of commitment. You need that kind of local face, that regional face kind of thing to win Bengal. You didn't do that. The next thing was Joy Sriram. Now, Joy Sriram, no Bengali has any issue with it. The point is, you can't be seen to replacing Joy Sriram, and this is something Ratan Sharda told me, which I never thought of at that point of time, which I now agree with completely. You can't replace Joy Ma Durga or Joy Ma Kali with Joy Sriram. You hyphenate it, but you have to do that. There has to be a local. Remember, on the other side, despite all of Bengal was the most radicalized Muslim population at pre-independence. Remember, the Noakhali riots and the direct action day were far worse in Bengal than they were anywhere else. Yet, in spite of being so radicalized, for Bangladesh, their language was more important than their religion, which is why they broke away from Pakistan.
Yeah.
Now, with a streak of nationalism like that, where you have ministers who say we don't even need interpretation in Bangla. Right? Sab Hindi samajhte hain. It's not about samajhte hain. It's about you have to pay deference to the local customs out there. Right? This is like, the same BJP that will say, oh, why can't Muslims in India accept that they're Hindus? Their ancestors were Hindus. What do you lose in respecting our temples? They're the same people who go to Bengal and it's only Joy Sri Ram, no Joy Maduka. Okay. The next thing was all these reports of anger against the government, they were highly overrated. Before I went to Kolkata, I heard there's anger against Mamta, there is anger against urban and rural. Okay. I land up in Kolkata, and to be fair, I only walked around the whole of drove around the whole of Greater Kolkata, which incidentally accounts for almost 90 seats in a 294 member assembly. Mostly because I wanted to go to my ancestral village, which is Noihati, which is up far north Calcutta. And what happens there is, I wasn't seeing the anger. Right. So, for example, in Noihati, there were, when I was outside my ancestral house, which is now owned and subdivided by a lot of other people. But anyway, it was my ancestral house. We shared the same fish pond as Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. And now there's a whole row of houses between our house and his house. What used to be the fish and rice pond is no longer there. But anyway, there was a TMC procession going. And these guys were like, Joy Sri Ram, Joy Sri Ram. And obviously the TMC goons chased them and they ran off. Okay. Now, what happened was when those kids came back after about 30, 40 minutes, I was like, so your parents are obviously going to vote for BJP. They're like, no, they're going to vote for TMC. They're like, well, then why did you go say Joy Sri Ram to all these people knowing full well they're going to get irritated? So they're like, nah, that was the fun. We wanted to irritate them because, this is a standard Bengali thing. You like to finger everybody. जिससे भी पंगा लेना है उससे पंगा लेते हैं ये लोग. And they interpreted this as a wave. So there's clearly something which, I never expected a wave of this kind. I knew BJP was losing, but I didn't expect them to lose this badly. So, it's...
Abhijit, I'll just interrupt you. Yeah. Let me just interrupt you here a little bit. See, when you say that, Mamta has the, good wishes of her people. Remember, she lost Nandigram, and yet when TMC won elections, she was ashamed and she wanted a recounting, which the EC did not allow. Do you think with the second surge of COVID, which forced lockdowns, there was hanky-panky in the counting of votes, as some have said? The fourth phase of TMC, attacks came during the counting process. The strong room where ballot boxes were kept was broken into, and bundles of ballot papers were tampered with in full view of officials. This is also the other side, Abhijit.
No, I don't believe that. The elections, wherever there was a iota of doubt, they held by-polls or re-elections. At least they've announced. I don't know if they've held it or not. So no, I don't buy that. This is just sour grapes. There is a question from the audience from Aham Brahmasmi, but Abhijit, you're saying this on hindsight. You didn't mention anything earlier. I'm sorry, Aham Brahmasmi, but if you see every other thing that says Abhijit Iyer Mitra and West Bengal on YouTube, you will find I've been repeating this every single place for the last 3 months. Please open your eyes, open your ears, and actually check things out before you comment. Thank you.
Yeah. See, another thing is, Abhijit, Didi abuses Modi and allows political violence in Bengal immediately after winning. And the BJP MLA from Nandigram, Suvendu, who inflicted a humiliating defeat on Mamta, appealed to the Namo government to intervene, saying things in Bengal have assumed dangerous proportions. Why was he not listened to?
Who was listened to? Shopanda was one of those very brave people who stayed in Kolkata. He was one of those few people who is actually considered a Kolkatan, not seen as a foreign import or whatever. Lost his seat, fine, but he put up an admirable fight. He stayed there. Even he had to go about appealing on Twitter. He wasn't listened to. Who were they listening to? And the other BJP leaders, instead of calling up the Prime Minister and getting things done on the ground, because the CRPF and the BSF were already there on the ground.
Yeah.
Right? So you didn't even send them out to be deployed. And that was something you could have done constitutionally instead of president's rule and things like that. You didn't even do that. It takes 24 hours for the BJP national president to respond. If you're not listening to your own MLA candidates and Shapan Das Gupta is an MP. He still is technically an MP because his resignation still hasn't been accepted. You're not even listening to your own MP. What does that say about you? Right. So the liberal media have behaved exactly the way I expected them to. The TMC have behaved exactly the way I expected them to. That's the God
So
honest
you,
truth, because in
so do
Bengal,
you think
power
that,
comes through criminality.
yeah, do you think that because we didn't have a proper chief minister candidate, from the state itself,
Like I said, that's only
hmm,
one thing.
one thing, yeah, yeah,
There's a whole plethora of things that we saw on the ground. Some of them I'd seen prior.
yeah,
The Muslim consolidation, for example, I'm only seeing it now in hindsight. I did
yeah,
not see it at that time, except the
uh,
only thing I'd seen at that point was that Asaduddin Owaisi had failed miserably to break the
mm,
Muslim
mm,
vote. Everybody on the ground was telling me they'll probably get Diamond Harbour and one or two constituencies nearby maximum, but they won't get more
yeah,
than that. That turned out to be true. Uh, uh, and that ISF was basically mobilizing wherever it wasn't mobilizing for the communists and the Congress party, they were mobilizing for the TMC. Again, I didn't think it was going to have that much of an impact, but that was just hindsight now.
yeah,
So the Muslim consolidation is purely hindsight on my part.
mm,
The others I've been saying for 2 months now.
yeah.
So it was a
But
lots of things. Everywhere where things could go wrong, they went wrong.
But in a sense, Abhijit, BJP secured a whopping 47.95 votes this time. TMC swept the state by winning 213 of the 292 seats in the state. BJP had 3 seats in 2016 and 77 now. Do you think Prashant Kishor had any effect on what the results are today?
No, no, uh, no. He didn't
Is
have
he
an
hyped
effect
up?
in.
Yeah.
I don't think he's hyped up.
Yeah.
He can just do a bit more, right? He can't pull the whole thing off himself. Ultimately, Mamta won this election, not Prashant Kishor. Ultimately, Stalin won the election, not Prashant Kishor. Prashant Kishor can help them manage things. He can point out contradictions. He can give you early warning signs, but it depends entirely on the leader if they're able to course correct and fix. Right? So it wasn't Prashant Kishor who won it. Mamta won it.
Do you think the
Let's give her
wheelchair
that
act,
credit.
act also worked in her favor?
I think the wheelchair had zero effect. The wheelchair had zero effect. This victory was scripted long before. The wheelchair maximum, it got her about 10-15,000 votes across Bengal, if that.
But Abhijit, when you talk about personalities from the state, look at Kerala. You see, you had the Metro Sridharan, projected as a possible chief minister, but none of them won any votes. I mean, what happened? Yeah. So
Look,
why is the scenario different? I mean, you think the scenario is same in Kerala as well as in Bengal and Tamil Nadu? Not so in Tamil Nadu, I would say.
Tamil Nadu as well. Look, the
Yeah.
BJP won because the ADMK pulled off something very spectacular, right? They, unlike the completely pendulumic thing where when the ADMK wipes out the DMK, they completely wipe out the DMK pretty much. But the DMK has for a very long time not been able to, at least since Jayalalitha took over when Jayalalitha lost after the tsunami. Do you remember the 2004 tsunami?
Yeah.
Was it the Boxing Day tsunami? She didn't lose by such a bad margin. She held about 70 seats or something like that, right? So since then, the ADMK has been very good in not allowing a complete wipeout. But in Pondicherry, they did play their cards very, very, very smart. But again, it was on the coattails of somebody else. Wherever the BJP does well, it is on the coattails of somebody else in the South. Why? Because for a long time now in the South, they've had extremely, how shall I put it? Incompetent leadership. There is no ground connect. It's like the Communist Party. Why did the Communist Party never do well in India? Because they could never theoretically change the class struggle framework to a struggle framework. So the cut, copy, paste didn't work. So, the BJP's cut, copy, paste, it doesn't work in these eastern seaboard states. I can tell you in Tamil Nadu, honestly, the BJP's resonance is zero. And mind you, this is a state that is so fierce about its Hinduism that on Thai Pusam, for example, you will have men who will pierce their own flesh with nails and needles and whatnot and walk around, but they won't vote for BJP. Right? So at some point, the BJP, they need to sit back that you've been trying in these eastern states for so long. If you're not succeeding, what is going wrong? Is your leadership bad? What is it? You need to sit back and think. Sridharan, I can tell you, was a mistake from day one from Palakkad. Why? Because Palakkad is where I'm from. We're originally from Palakkad. Our ancestral village is in Palakkad. I have a house in Palakkad. I keep going back to Palakkad. It's a significant Muslim majority out there. Right? So if you thought it was going to work out there, it really wasn't. So, you can... The amount of wishful thinking that happens in the BJP is truly... I don't know. Like, I think they've reached their pinnacle now, and from now, it's all downhill.
Somewhere, Abhijit, I feel they listen too much to the yes people rather than the people who criticize them and give them, good criticism. You're talking about things that could work. So if they listen more to their critics, who are also their well-wishers, maybe things would have changed, Abhijit.
I think especially this phenomenon has gotten particularly bad under Modi, where all criticism is deemed as treason. तू दल पलटू है, तू पलटू है, तू दल बदलू है, तू दलाल है, तू क्या रायता है, what not. They keep coming up with these new terms. They just want absolute conformity. And like I said, this is a party that has been overtaken by an extremely dangerous personality cult that is no longer the party it used to be. It's become a winner, for sure. But that winning isn't sustainable. It lasts up to a point. But it's going to keep getting reinforced, this style of functioning. Why? Because I'm telling you right now, I know it seems impossible at the moment, but in 2024, Modi is going to win. And he's probably going to win by an even bigger margin. Do you know why? Because the string of opposition successes now, and I suspect it's going to be consolidated in UP next year. If the panchayat elections are anything to go by, where, mind you, they've lost the panchayat elections in Gorakhpur, where the chief minister is the Peethadipati. They have lost the election. They lost it in Ayodhya. They lost it in Varanasi. They lost it in Kashi. This is where hawa us taraf ja raha hai. And what I suspect will happen is the opposition will win a whole bunch of states. They will get into hubris. And as always, the star campaigner of the BJP, who is not Modi, who is not Amit Shah, it's actually Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi will open his mouth, or rather his tweets, and he'll swing it for the BJP.
Abhijit, it was said that a large number of Rohingyas and Bangladeshis were allowed to come into West Bengal just to vote, and these people returned after this. Do you think that the BSF in the borders is corrupt and that the center has no control over them? And that's why this happened?
Is the BSF corrupt? Yes. The BSF is absolutely corrupt, yes. But you don't get to vote like that, boss. So, I'd really tell the BJP to stop behaving like the Congress does when it loses. Like, grow a spine and admit you lost. Right? And it was your own goddamn fault. Stop blaming these illegal immigration. What did you do about illegal immigration? Borders are a central subject. They're not a state subject. Na? To kya hai aapne? BSF is corrupt. We all know that. What did you do to fix the BSF? Nothing. Then what are you crying about now? ठीक है ना, तो नहीं, they won. Look, the Mamta won fair and square, full stop.
But what are the good things
See,
that she's
it
done
was
for the
a,
state?
well, she's not done nothing bad for the state. And Bengal isn't a very high achievement state. They're content with what they have, from the looks of it. There's there's no
But they
entrepreneurial
are, but
culture.
they are,
There's no
they are, they are intellectuals. They are supposed to be very violent. They're supposed to be,
this,
you
this,
know.
this Bengali intellect is highly overrated. Huh? Don't fall for it. It's like, this notion that in Madras every girl plays the veena and does Bharatnatyam, and every boy recites the Rig Veda when he wakes up in the morning. That is in Madras. And this Bengal, where even the beggar on the street spouts Tolstoy and Gorky and Karl Marx. These are all stereotypes. Spare me. Huh? West Bengal has about as much intellect or not as, say, Jharkhand or Chhattisgarh or Uttarakhand. ठीक है ना? The only thing is that they don't dance to Bhojpuri songs and dances. But I can honestly tell you that if you watch Bengali movies, their dances are even worse than Bhojpuri dances. So, there's no this thing about it.
You still didn't tell me what are the good things that Mamta did.
She did nothing. But she didn't do anything bad. She didn't anger the people. There was no anger on the ground. I went around asking. One thing I do, though, to be fair in my research, because this is something I got taught very early, and this is something I used to see with foreigners, dealing with foreigners in Delhi. When my bosses would come and say, oh, the foreign minister gave such a brilliant speech. Like, yeah, this man is such an intellectual. He's like brilliant, amazing. And after my boss would leave, I then say, dude, you seriously didn't think that speech was good. It was such a crappy speech. They'd be like, thank God there's somebody else in this room who listens to us, who thinks like us. So I learned, it depends on how you start the conversation. And how you start the conversation is exactly what you hear back. So I've learned very, very early not to give my value judgments to people. When I listen, I sit down and I listen to them. And I'm very careful on how to frame the questions, which gave me a huge headache in Afghanistan, because I've only been to Afghanistan once. And in that one trip, with Bengal or Tamil Nadu or places like that, I've been over and over again. So I know how to frame my questions. With Afghanistan, it was highly problematic asking people things without assuming certain things. So, I had to take the first 4-5 days in Kabul just acclimatizing myself. And even then I screwed up somewhat. But, it's one of those things where you learn while you're doing it. Like, you say something to a Taliban leader and you're like, shit, I shouldn't. It's kind of one of those things where after it's already left your mouth, you're like, I shouldn't have put that question that way. It's like that. So it's taken me a lot of time to fine tune it, but I think I'm half decent at it. But I didn't sense any anger.
Abhijit, you've got the soft corner for, mother-like figures, be it Shashikala or be it Mamta, or now, see, even your Khushbu has lost. What is your feeling about your neighbor losing?
I'm heartbroken about Khushbu Akka losing. But look, I've always had I think people have forgotten Mamta saved Bengal from the bloody communists. Okay? You owe her big time for that, boss. So I will always have a soft corner for her. And is she high strung? Is she crazy? Of course she is. Nobody other than her, I can honestly tell you, if you think what the TMC did in Bengal to the BJP in Bengal was bad, you have no bloody idea what the communists used to do to Congress workers in Bengal in those days. She stared them down. It takes guts to do that. For a woman who gets beaten up, manhandled, God knows what not else, to stand up there, do what she was doing day after day for 15 years, 15 thankless years, with no end in sight. It took guts. So I'm very upset with what she did. Would I like to see her gone? Yes. But remember, she's also done a lot of good getting, for me, any communist that you get rid of, you are assured a place in heaven, no matter what you do. It's one of those balancing acts that Krishna talks about, where you have to do some bit of evil so that you can come back and enjoy the fruits of all the good that you did. It's like that. Has she done evil? Yes. But I think people have forgotten how bad the communists were. So, good
But also,
riddance.
but also, Abhijit, I mean, Bengalis need progress. I mean, they can't live in the Stone Ages.
Well, they feel they can. So, we may think people need this is, I think saying that Bengal needs progress is a bit like the white man coming to India and saying the brown man needs progress. See, if you're happy living the way you are, why should anybody else tell you what to do? Would I have preferred for the BJP to win? Of course. That said, I don't think the BJP would have been able to deliver much by way of Poriborton or whatever it is that they were claiming. That's a different matter. But yeah, whatever.
Do you think Smriti's Bengali did not work there?
It definitely worked. I think it was one of the highlights of the campaign. I think she swung a lot of votes.
Hmm.
The problem is, why wasn't she made the star campaigner? This is what irritates me, when you've got an obvious star who's genuinely fantastic and genuinely intelligent. You just don't project her the way you should be.
She
was
is
underused.
she is Modi ji's star minister.
But she's not treated as the star minister. No? So what do you do? See, you and I may think she's a star. The people of Bengal may think she's a star. But if Modi doesn't think she's a star, then what do you do? Now what you need to do is understand. First, you can be very positive in that, ठीक है, ममता को 15 साल लगे तो हमको भी ठीक है 15 साल लगेंगे, we'll keep at it. But by not standing up for your party workers, you have lost so much support on the ground. It's going to be impossible for you to get it back, because nobody is going to vote for a backstabber bhagoda. Okay? Number one. Number two, if you want to get things back, please get somebody who connects with the people like Smriti Irani to permanently, and she's very good at this. Remember, when she lost Amethi the first time, she didn't lose heart. She went and Basau-fied. She made house there, and she won the second time. She did.
But
She embodied that spirit.
anyone can win against Rahul.
Yeah. She did what Mamta did in Bengal. She did in Amethi what Mamta did in Bengal. वो करो, नहीं तो फिर at least give the party over to Suvendu Adhikari or somebody like that who at least knows what to do. ना? नहीं, मैं मदर टेरेसा बन के पूजा पाठ जपते रहूंगी और बोलूंगी सत्यम वद धर्मम चरा नॉनसेंस, वो सब उधर काम नहीं होने वाला है.
So what do you think the BJP should do? I mean, learn from this experience, and what can they do to change their ways?
I don't know. Because I'm giving you micro solutions for Bengal. Give the party structure over to Suvendu Adhikari, or start projecting Smriti as the candidate. But see, you've inflicted a lot of permanent damage. That's going to take, instead of next election, don't aim for the next election, aim for the next to next election. Because see, you've got to win back a lot of support. That's going to take 5 years, and then you consolidate, which is going to take another 5 years. But for that, you need to have a long-term plan, boss. Smriti Irani, Suvendu Adhikari को उधर full time बनाओ. वो जो एक और आया था क्या, सोविक चैटर्जी, उसको भी बनाओ. They have won elections. They know what to do. They've won elections before. They've been critical in Mamta winning elections before. They know what to exploit. Do it, na?
Why do you think Congress is losing? in every state.
Congress though is now it's a footnote in history now. They're not going to
Why
come
is
back anywhere.
Rahul is not important?
Look, Rahul's a joke even within his own party. You tell me anyone in the Congress, when you sit down and have an honest conversation with a congressman, you tell me which congressman takes Rahul seriously. Nothing. When you've got a joke for a president who doesn't listen, he only listens, he's like Gandhi who listens to his inner voice, or the concept of shunyata as he calls it. And unlike Gandhi, his inner voice isn't really very good. I mean, imagine in Kerala, for the first time in how many years? I think it's the first time in almost 30, 40 years that a government has been re-elected with a huge majority. The first time.
Despite all the scandal, the gold smuggling scandal.
Everything. Despite everything. I'm telling you, Modi is going to win 2024. Sorry, Modi isn't going to win 2024. Rahul is going to make Modi win 2024 by an even bigger margin.
Okay. Metal Films is asking, question for you. What can Bengali Hindus do to put up a fight? They're losing lives. What can they do besides looking into ineffective leadership alone?
Organize, create linkages. What I'd suggest you start doing is holding the BJP local offices when this current wave of violence dies down. Hold them to account, kick them out of your constituencies, make it known that you're angry, and tell them not to come back unless they're going to come back as a civil defense unit. Okay? Do not allow BJP leaders within you unless they're willing to back up your civil defense units. If they're going to give you nonsense about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam or Gandhiism or whatever, please kick them the hell out of your villages and your towns. They don't deserve to be amongst you. A person who can't defend you can't defend this country. It's that simple.
You remember, Abhijit, the lady who was in the sort of working class, maybe as a maid, she won. BJP had projected her.
Yeah. Did she? I don't.
She won. Yeah, she won.
Yeah.
Okay, let me take another one. Abhijit and Meenaji, what is the prospect for India and third wave of corona waiting with deadly attack? This Wuhan virus going to take central government where healthcare system completely failed. If a third wave comes, I suppose.
Look, if a third, we haven't even finished the second wave, and if you get a third wave now, it screws you over in ways that you couldn't even imagine. Right? So, I honestly don't know what's going to happen now. We're already not able to deal. And the sad part is, it's an oxygen supply problem. We produce more than enough oxygen. There just isn't enough canisters and transport this thing. They never even considered it. Some idiot bureaucrat must have seen oxygen production kya hai, requirement kya hoga, bas haan theek hai. They never thought how to mate patient with oxygen. Same with remdesivir and toximulab and things like that, or blood plasma. Now, there's a lot of medical opinion saying, look, boss, blood plasma does not help. Remdesivir does not help. Guess what? That doesn't matter, boss. If the doctor is saying that is what he needs, then that is what he needs. This person deserves a shot at life. Even if it's a Hail Mary, if that is what they require, then give them what they require, or else give them what they don't have.
Yeah.
Right? You're not even doing that. No, it is not biowarfare from China. And I'll tell you why. Because this particular strain came to us from the UK, which, thanks to our clown of a foreign minister, we did not shut down air links with, even when you knew there was a horrible UK strain in the air. Why? Because dosti barkarar rehna chahiye nonsense. Though, mind you, when it came to the Indian strain mutating, the UK government shut down flights from India like that. This is where, we end up confusing dosti with putting your own citizens in danger. This is a UK strain, but even the UK strain was manageable till it mutated with a South African strain. Now you have 13 different strains in India right now, including the original UK and South African strain. 11 of these are highly mutated. Now you have some 14th and 15th strains, the one that's been reported in Andhra, which is even more virulent now. We don't even know what the hell is happening. And the problem during all of this was that they put defeating the first wave.
Yeah.
They
Right.
prioritized defeating the first wave instead of simultaneously doing research on mutations and things like that. So now we don't even know what the hell is happening because we haven't collected data properly, etc., etc., etc. So, it's happened epidemiologically, it's happened before. It's nothing unique. These sudden mutations being very geographically hyper localized has happened in the past. It's nothing new. So it's just one of those things. It's happened in the past, it's happening again. There's nothing unusual about the breakout this time. So no, it's not a biological this thing.
Yeah.
Foreign media showing mask and projected failure of the Modi government. Well, the government has failed. After 3 weeks, if you still have people having to look for oxygen in Delhi and wherever across the board, having to search for hospital beds, then clearly the government has failed. Okay, so they're not wrong in that. As for showing images of funerals and things, tell me something. Do you have a legal obligation? Do you have any laws preventing them from taking pictures of dead bodies or hospitals or funerals? No, America does. It's called the HIPAA Act. The what's it called? The Health Insurance Portability and Something Act. Very strict controls on privacy. You can't show a whole set of things. Okay, so it's clearly banned out there. They'll get into serious trouble if they show any hospital images. If you remember, even during Spain and Italy in the first wave, they didn't show any of the images. Why? Because EU regulations on privacy are extremely strict.
Yeah.
India has a privacy law. The problem is it isn't enforced. So it's purely a question of you can't have laws, have no laws to cover all of this.
Yeah.
And then say, oh, look, they're behaving like vultures. They never did it in the West. Because that's fundamentally a wrong argument. They can't do it in the West because they'll go to jail if they do it in the West. And you won't enact laws about it. Because if you enact laws now, it isn't to protect the privacy of the patient. It's to protect your own incompetence. Okay, so please remember, if you go to my Twitter timeline, I have not criticized what the West is showing. I haven't called it vulture journalism because it's a failure of policy like we fail at everything. And that's that.
Yeah. Priyadash is asking who has totally lost, WHO has totally lost it. And do you think China has bought out? Yeah.
Yes. And you know who helped them buy out the WHO? We did. This jackass, Dr. Ted, it's better to call him Dr. Ted because it sounds like a psycho serial killer name, which he is. So Dr. Ted, India helped him get elected. And we still support him, by the way. We still normalize him. Your ministers still fawn over him. So yeah.
About the government failure, few local purposely sabotaging governments, talking about parties.
It's not sabotaging. It's not sabotaging. Nobody knows what to do. Everybody's panicking. they're doing what they can to save their own people. Does it appear as sabotage on the outside? Yes, because when you don't have smooth coordination going on, these things are bound to happen. That is why you're meant to have a central government. That's it.
Yeah, so do you see another party coming up? Is another question.
Look, I don't know the answer to that. I don't see any new party coming up because in India, bringing up a party, it took the BJP, what, 70 odd years to gain power unequivocally. Well, it took them 60 years to come to power first in, what was it, 1996? 98, 98. Huh? So, it's going to take, who has time to build up a party? Is Gadkari going to be the prime minister? I certainly hope so, because he's the only really competent man in that cabinet. But realistically speaking, given the control that Modi has over the party, I don't know. And the problem is Modi isn't going to lose the next election, boss. I'm telling you right now, he's not going to lose the next election. एक साल में सब ये भूल जाएंगे जो भी हुआ. In 1 year, it will be forgotten.
Yeah.
Remember, and this is merely incompetence that we're talking about. You remember all the nasty stuff Indira Gandhi did from 1975 to 77? Forced sterilization, killings, whatnot, mass jailings and everything. They forgot that in 3 years and voted her back in a bigger majority than she ever had before. 3 years is a long time in elections. 3 years is a long time in politics, especially Indian politics. Kuch nahi hone wala. Is the PLA troop build up conveniently timed? No. They've been doing it for a long time. There's nothing new happening during the second wave. No. That is one thing I can guarantee you. You will not have Rahul as... See, you need to understand, boss. As much as I'm against conspiracy theories, I'm convinced that Rahul is a conspiracy foisted on the Congress by Modi. He is being paid by Modi to lead up the Congress party, so that no matter what the BJP does, they can never lose a general election. So don't worry, you will not have Rahul as your next prime minister. I hope, but realistically, no. Trump is not coming back in 2024.
Will Trump be back on Twitter?
I hope. I don't think so, but I hope.
What is the obsession of Western media putting India down ever so often?
Because you can get away with it. And it doesn't serve their official it doesn't serve their agenda to have India in the good books. Because unless you hold them up as the intellectual lights, it's a back-scratching society. You have to tell them that they're the best journalists, whatever, and they will reciprocate. Otherwise, everything you do is bad, wrong, whatever. And see, you can get away with antagonizing them if you have a fact checker who gives it back to them every evening in a press conference like Pramod Mahajan used to. Here, you neither have a Pramod Mahajan, you've got clowns doing Pramod Mahajan's job and not even doing it 1% as effectively as he did. Plus, you don't give them any bhav. This is what you're going to get. So enjoy yourself.
Will Yogi win the next UP elections?
I don't know. I haven't given it any thought. Again, I'm not... Let's see.
Trump is launching his own communication platform. He doesn't need...
He's already launched it. He's launched a blog.
Yeah.
It's quite cool. I follow him. So yeah.
What can we as Indians do to protect the image of India? Neha Acharya.
Nothing much if your leaders are hell-bent on sabotaging it.
Why president's rule is not being imposed in West Bengal despite all the atrocities. What kind of politics is this?
It's Modi politics. Ask him.
Why not Mamta politics?
No, it's not Mamta politics. It's Modi politics. Not dismissing a government when they're going horribly, horribly wrong is Modi politics.
If the BJP keeps on taking such a no stand on violence, be it CAA protests, farmer protests, and now Bengal, it will give rise to a far-right party like Marine Le Pen in France.
Hopefully. Because he can't be outflanked on the left anymore. The only way to outflank Modi now is on the right. So I'm kind of hoping we get a Marine Le Pen of the right out here. The problem always is, it doesn't matter how right-wing Indians start off, that desire for white person validation always turns them into soft left-wingies. It happened to Vajpayee as well. It's happened very badly to Modi. So,
Do you believe in Illuminati?
Yes, and I also believe in alien abductions. I was abducted by aliens. They did all kinds of experiments on me. That's why my brains are so big, because they kind of the intergalactic worm, this intergalactic space worm, they took brain cells from it and implanted it in my head.
Maybe you're scared to speak about them.
Yeah, I'm very scared to speak about them because, I might end up dead in the gutter next morning. Yeah.
What happens to Karnataka BJP after BSY goes?
I don't know. And honestly, I don't know. It's not that there isn't a good second rung of leadership there. It's just that the party is heavily compromised out there. So let's see how it works. But yeah.
Your POV, is the center compromised by any chance, since no stern action is being taken against the violence in Bengal?
Correct. Because when you do not take action against violence in Bengal or anywhere in the world, anywhere in India, where it is in fact the government's job to be doing that, you end up encouraging more violence.
Which is the next question. Will West Bengal violence spread across the country? Because in Delhi and in West Bengal since long time. Next is Delhi.
It will. That's the worry. See, the thing is, when the first riots happened in 2019 and in Selampur, I said, if you're not going to arrest these people, there is going to be another riot. Then when they sat down and pretended to be peaceful at Shaheen Bagh, I said, if you're not going to clear these people up, these people are going to provide the fodder for that imminent riot that's coming. And sure enough, you had the 2020 Delhi riots. When the farmers were uprooting telephone poles, I said, there are all my tweets there. You can go check my Twitter timeline saying, if you don't deal with them now with force, there are going to be riots. And there were riots. When you have not cracked down on the TMC for the violence, trust me, this entire next 5 years, there's going to be a slow, systematic pogrom against BJP and BJP supporters, which anyway started off before and the BJP did nothing. And they've learnt the template now. What has the net result been? Violence in Delhi, AAP win in Delhi. Violence in Bengal, TMC win in Bengal. If you want to win, there has to be violence, and that is the message that has gone out. So yes, you're going to see significant spikes in violence across the country.
Sridatta is saying, without doing anything, BJP and Modi are called fascist. If they bring any law that is strict, the media will outrage. Is that lack of approval why BJP doesn't do anything?
The BJP is under the impression that the press voted it to power. They think they got voted into power by Nidhi Razdan and NDTV and Rajdeep Sardesai. And so their entire effort is to live up to Nidhi Razdan and Rajdeep Sardesai's impression of them. They treat their own voters as irrelevance. Arey, tu to वैसे भी तू घर में है ना, तेरा क्या लेना देना? Bill Gates patent farm. I have been saying since day one, since he ran Microsoft, that the fellow's a murderous crook. Completely unethical when he ran Microsoft. Ethics and Bill Gates are like water and oil. But you know what's very curious? The Indian panel that looks after that empowered panel or whatever has a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation representative on it, even though they've been opposing patents for vaccines in India repeatedly, over and over and over again. So it really shows you the level of awareness that our national leadership has. Is there a Soros connection? Vaguely, yes. Invariably, when a certain person has a certain kind of ideology, then there's usually a certain George Soros connection to it. Have I been to Paris? Yes, several times. Why?
When will we get justice? We want justice for the great, evergreen, talented actor Prashant Singh Rajput.
I didn't follow that at all. So,
That was about
if you notice,
SSR.
I
Yeah,
never
yeah.
came.
Hello
Yeah.
from Doha, sir. I agree with you about Modi. Don't know why the Janta is quiet about what's going on. And Meena, it's obvious that you are BJP supporter, but don't blame Mamta. That's
I
just
blame
about it.
Mamta. I think we all blame Mamta. The point is, whose blame is greater? Is the if a parent sends their child to play with a Rottweiler that you know has killed people in the past, who is to be blamed? The Rottweiler for staying true to its nature, or that idiot of a parent who needs to be sterilized and their kids put into social services? Parthavi Gumideli. Then what is going to be the future of our country in the next 5 years? No actions are being made against these brutal violence. You don't. That is the point. You get used to it and you enjoy the violence. It's the new normal. Congratulations, Parthavi. There are going to be riots near you next because this has now become the template. They know that the only thing they need to do to get the BJP down is create a state of civil siege throughout. It is going to happen in every single city, in every single town. This is the new normal. Congratulations and welcome to the new India.
Sridatta is asking, is air pollution in Delhi the cause of even more severe cases of corona due to weaker respiratory systems?
No idea. I haven't read any studies to indicate that so far.
Do you like Macron or Le Pen?
I made a character evaluation of Macron that was horribly wrong. He turned out to be much better than I thought he'd be. So I thought he was a typical socialist, whatever. He wasn't. So I like Marine Le Pen a lot, but I quite like Macron a lot as well. And I think in terms of their economic policy, because Le Pen tends to be a bit more socialist and Macron is not, I would say right now I prefer Macron. Yes.
Metal says, besides Western media, some of our media and Indians do join the bashing. I alienated some of my friends when I spoke against the dignity and privacy of Indians being invaded. Need shift in mindsets.
भाई देखो, एनी इंडियन जिसका डिग्निटी और प्रिवेसी वायलेट हो रहा था, उन्होंने आके कुछ बोला? जब एक फोटोग्राफर बड़ी टेलीफोटो लेंस लेके घूम रहा है, आपके रिश्तेदार पे शूट कर रहा है या लाइव वीडियो ले रहा है हॉस्पिटल पे, उन लोगों ने प्रोटेस्ट नहीं किया ना, तो तुम्हारा क्या जाता है? अपने काम से मतलब रखो.
Agree with Abhijit. Gates and ethics are poles apart. Absolutely. There's a disconnect there.
Mind you, he advises the Indian government. His stooges are in the Indian government. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation initially got kicked out, and the moment they started praising Modi, they got invited back in and put on everything.
Is it true that opposition and some media houses have received millions of dollars to oust Modi?
Is it? Not that I know of. Opposing Modi is a very good business model. Remember, like opposing Trump, CNN's viewership went up to where it's never been for a very long time. It's like that. You automatically, if you oppose Modi, it sells abroad. It gives a new, brown hellhole that desperately requires the white man, the white hero to come save. So, yeah, it flatters the Western imagination.
Akshat, will Hindus be a majority in India by 2050? Or will they become a minority?
They're going to be a majority for a very long time, though unfortunately it doesn't matter.
Why does BJP yearn for validation from Americans, NDTV? Why is there such a lack of communication with the people?
It's a socioeconomic strata you're born in. See, I was born to IAS parents, so I treat other IAS people like dirt. But when people aren't born in IFS households, they're like, ओ देखो वो तू बड़ा बन के आईएएस बनेगा, देख आईएएस का लाट साहब आया है, this that etc etc etc. See, each person has their own thing.
You think there's a
There's
turmoil?
nothing you can do about the inferiority complex. As for the communications, there's this belief that Modi is a master communicator, so there's no need for a good second rung of communication. You look at the BJP, almost everything about it is third rate. Their policies aren't well thought through, though that is actually an Indian thing. Indian policies are generally never well thought through. Their communications is third rate. Why? Because they want to maintain this image of Modi being the master communicator. Basically, there should be no alternative pole built up to Modi in any form or way. That is the way it works.
Priyadash, you think there's a turmoil in the Chinese
Communist Party against Xi? No,
against
none, zero. Nothing he can't deal with. ये तो पूछ लिया है. Okay, I have to get going now, Meena.
Thank you so much. Been a beautiful session, and please join us again in another one. Thank you so much, and good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.